Hey, everybody, this is Joel Hoekstra of Whitesnake, and you're listening to the Ages of Rock podcast. Rock on.
Welcome to the Ages of Rock podcast with your hosts, Bill Algie, Dennis Talbot, and Alan Tate. We are three guys who have one thing in common, a love of rock and roll. Our goal is to talk about all things rock. We hope you find this show intriguing, funny, and occasionally highly opinionated. Enjoy!
All right, welcome to the Ages of Rock podcast. This is episode number 117. You will see a hopefully very familiar face on your screen tonight as we are joined by none other than Jeff Pilson.
No, I'm sorry. I ruined my own intro. Sorry.
I didn't hear what you said. I was too busy trying to think.
I was introducing, you said a familiar face. I said, Alan Tate.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Wow.
Okay.
Usually that's not how we say it when we say Alan Tate. It's more of a kind of like, oh, and then Alan.
Yeah. That guy.
That guy.
Well, thanks for joining us, Jeff.
Well, thank you. Great to be here.
Awesome. Great. It's good to have you on the show. So, I mean, I can't believe you have, some time to spend with us because you are one busy dude.
I am indeed. But you know what? Actually had, and this is a very rare occasion, we had 2 days off when we're here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I have my studio set up here in the room, which is awesome. So I've been getting a lot done. But because we have these 2 days off, this is the perfect day to do this. So glad it could be arranged.
Man, thanks for spending time with us. We appreciate it very much. So you have a studio set up? Are you recording some stuff? You doing some
I'm
writing and
music as we speak? Yeah, really fun. Well, not awesome. As we speak, but I mean,
he's talented.
But yeah, I've been spending we had a day off yesterday, and we have the day off today, so both days have been all day, and that's how I keep sane on the road. And when I say keep sane, I'm speaking in a relative sense because who knows how sane I really am.
I think that's been questioned before. I've heard others.
Question my sanity? Oh,
yes.
Talk to my wife.
Where do you when you're not on the road, where do you call home?
Santa Clarita, California.
Oh, cool.
So are you on a diet?
Oh, Santa Clarita.
What's funny? My wife's a realtor.
There you go.
And I do not like to piss her off. Let's put it that way.
Yes, didn't seem to be a good outcome on the shows I've seen. A lot of blood involved. It's not pretty at all. So Jeff, I've been a Dokken fan, and I've got to show you. I'm wearing my Dokken t-shirt tonight. So I have 3 rock shirts. I have Kiss. Well, that's not true. I have a bunch of Kiss t-shirts. I have a Foo Fighters t-shirt, and I have a Dokken t-shirt.
Well, I'm flattered, and thank you.
Yeah, I am very proud to wear this today.
And that's the coolest ones ever. The tooth and nail claw.
Oh yeah,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, back in the day, I had one that was like from the tour, but now I don't think I could wear that on my leg, let alone anywhere else.
They shrink over time. I don't know what happens. All my shirts shrink.
Isn't that true? Yeah.
It's funny. I told a guy the other day I need to come see him because the shirt I bought at his concert, the shirt shrunk. And so he texted me back and he goes, man, just send me your address. I'll send you a new shirt. And I'm like, no, dude, the shirt didn't shrink. It was me that didn't shrink. So, can you talk a little bit about how Dokken got formed? And I mean, I've heard it before, but it's a cool story.
Well, okay, I'll try and make this quick because it's a long one. Basically, Don had a band in L.A. It was originally called Airborne. I believe he changed it to Dokken, and he went overseas. And in that band, at least at some point when he went overseas, Bobby Blotzer from Rat was playing drums, and Tom Carusier, who is Juan Carusier of Rat's brother. Tom, great bass player, really talented guy. Anyways, and I believe that was the version of Dokken that went to Europe. I could have a little bit of those facts wrong. But anyways, essentially that was it. Dieter Dierks, who is the Scorpions producer, longtime producer, saw Dokken in a club and really liked Don. Now, I'm thinking he didn't see the version with Bobby and Tom only because Bobby and Tom are both great. And the feedback from Dieter was, I'll sign you, but you need a different band. So perhaps this was at some point, maybe Tom and Bobby had left by this point. Not really sure. But anyways, whoever Dieter saw Don with, he didn't care for. And he said, I'll sign you to a deal, but you got to get another band. Well, Don then called Mick Brown, who was in a band in L.A. with George Lynch called Exciter. And this was, now you got to remember, this is 1981. So things have taken a real turn in L.A. where rock music is having a hard time. You know, the Knack has come along, the whole skinny tie deal. Rock bands were kind of like on the outs at that point. So so Mick was sitting in L.A. with really kind of nothing to do. Exciter was having a hard time getting gigs. So when Don offered him the gig, Mick said, yeah, I'd love to do it, but you got to bring George along. Well, now Don knew George and knew that he was this great guitar player. They knew each other, not terribly well, but they knew each other. So Don's thinking, wow, you know what, even though I'm the lead guitarist of Dokken at the moment, Don was, you know what, it'll be stronger if George is there because George is great. So Don was thinking very, very group-like mentality, and brought both Mick and George over. I forget how Juan got involved. Perhaps Juan came in when Tom couldn't do it or something like that. So anyway, somehow Juan got involved, Juan Carusier. And so that was Dokken. And they did the Breaking the Chains record. Actually, Juan, I take that back. Juan must have come later because Peter Baltus, who was the bass player from Accept, actually played bass on the first Dokken record. And so they recorded it. Then I guess they brought in Juan and they toured Europe a bit. Then a couple years later, flash forward to the beginning of the whole LA process of the Sunset Strip bands getting signed and everything. And Dokken gets a deal with an American label, Elektra. And right at that point, Juan then found out that Rat got a deal. Because now all these rock bands were getting deals. So Juan quit Dokken to join Rat. That's when Don called a guy by the name of Mike Varney, who's a known band, guy for, calling, who should I get for this band, et cetera, et cetera. He called Mike. Mike suggested me because I had just moved to L.A. Don said, do you know of any singing bass players? I had just moved to L.A., so Mike made the connection. So, making a long story short, that's how I ended up joining. And then there you have the original lineup of Dokken, all put together by August of '83.
And the rest is awesome.
Yeah. Well, not all of it, but yeah.
Well, yeah. From this side of the fence, at least for a couple of, a while there, it was awesome.
Well, and you know what? In reality and in retrospect, very awesome. A great thing, a great opportunity for all of us. And we were lucky guys. We did have a great musical chemistry and we worked very hard, but we were also very lucky. And I think we all really recognize that now, which is great.
Yeah. So what got you to LA then? Was it just,
I had been living in San Francisco before that, and San Francisco was even less rock than LA when that whole new wave thing happened. San Francisco was even a little more punk. So it was just not a healthy musical environment. I was playing with a guy by the name of Randy Hansen, who is still known to this day as doing the greatest tribute to Jimi Hendrix ever. And Randy's been a friend for 40 plus years from Seattle, but we were in the Bay Area playing. We had a band, but it was an original band where we did half Randy's songs, half my songs. And he sang half, I sang half. And I loved the band and we were having a great time, but nobody was going to sign it because it just wasn't what was happening. This is now 82. So because we didn't have any opportunities in San Francisco, I decided, you know what, I'm going to move to LA. I heard rock is starting to happen there. So I moved to LA in early '83, and by August I was in Dokken.
Wow.
Then the
We're giving you guys really nice, precise details here. This is
cool.
That was awesome.
That's cool. So, from there, then what were your musical influences growing up? Where did what made you what drew you to the bass and all that stuff?
All right. Well, the first major influence was the Beatles. I watched them on Ed Sullivan, February 9th, 1964, like 70 million other Americans did. And that was when I decided, wow, that's a pretty good job. I think I'd like to do that. And I didn't act on it right away, but I know in my mind that was the moment that it all really congealed. And that was when my future was formed. By the time I started playing when I was about 12. And the first guy I loved was Jack Bruce from Cream. I started with bass, by the way. I had been playing cello in school. I started in 5th grade playing cello. So I had a little bit of musical background, a little bit. But then some guys approached me on the playground. This is not an exaggeration. In 6th grade, some guys approached me on the playground and said, hey, we're starting a band. And they had heard me singing on the playground. They said, can you sing? And by the way, we need a bass player too. So can you play bass? And I was like, yeah, sure. And I had a paper out. I got my first bass and my first amp. Again, I was 12 years old and started getting into it. The first guy that got me was Jack Bruce. Then a year later, we ended up moving to the state of Washington. And we ended up moving to this town that was very, very, well, to me, very backwards. I had come from a fairly sophisticated metropolitan area in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I moved to this tiny town in the state of Washington that was pretty backwards. So the bass, my bedroom, and the turntable became my best friends. And I spent all my time learning. And when I was 13, I started getting really serious quite fast. And then I picked up on everybody, Zeppelin, all that stuff, Deep Purple, all that stuff became important. Then when I was about 15, I got turned on to Chris Squire of Yes, the bass player from Yes. And that totally changed my life. And it made me incredibly dedicated. So when I was about, close to 16 years old is when I became so into it that there was no question in my mind I was going to become a musician. But to answer your question, my influences were McCartney, John Paul Jones, Entwistle, Chris Squire, Jack Bruce, all the classics. And I got a lot of great teachers.
How does it feel to know that you've inspired a lot of other people to play?
Oh, it feels great. It feels great. And it's something I never lose sight of. When I was 17, a friend of mine and I, we had our girlfriends with us when we went to see a Yes concert. And after the concert, we went to the back of the Coliseum and we could see when Yes's limousine was pulling away. So we followed it to the hotel. We got to the hotel. And when Chris Squire, who by this point, by the way, is so much my absolute idol, I was one of those kids that was so ridiculously into it that, I was just speechless. He got out of the car and I went up, this 17-year-old, extremely hyperactive, very excited kid. And I went up to talk to him and I said, Mr. Squire. And he turned around and he was so kind to me. He was so nice to me. He answered all my questions. He was very patient, and I was very, very, intense. I didn't even ask for an autograph. I was so intense. But he was very kind. He waited until I was done, and he said, thank you very much. And he turned around and walked away. I will never forget that day my entire life, and I've always done my best to try to be as nice as I can to fans because of how much that stuck with me. And the effect that's had on me every time any kids ever come up to me and been excited. So I think it's really important. I cannot. Are we allowed to swear on here, by the way?
Oh, yeah. You can say whatever you want.
I can't stand assholes. I just can't. I have no tolerance for them.
That's it, Dennis. Get off the show.
we have an explicit label on our show, and it's because of me.
Yeah, guys that don't have time for fans or just think they're too cool. Oh, I just cannot. That's a huge pet peeve for me. So anyways, boy, am I giving you long, drawn-out answers.
That's something though, Jeff. We've talked about quite a few times on here though. Is meeting your heroes and stuff.
Yeah.
Luckily, I have never been in that situation. I've heard some horror stories, where somebody has caught somebody on a wrong day or whatever.
Yeah.
I've been lucky enough to meet quite a few of my people that I looked up to and had the same experiences. They were just genuine. And the thing is, they're genuine. They're people. You think of them as people, gods, but they're So
yeah, exactly. And yet when they know that when they're essentially being bothered, like I was bothering Chris Squire at that moment, I'm sure he wanted to just go into his hotel and kick back and smoke a big fatty or whatever. Although now that I think back, I kind of think he might have smoked a big fatty in the limousine because he was pretty mellow. But anyway, but anyways, being cool is just so important, and not taking yourself seriously is really important. So I'm glad you had good experiences too.
Yeah, that's been really good.
I think we've all been. It's funny though, because when you responded to my tweet about being on the show, I was at a football event for a fundraiser thing, and I'm sitting there at the table, and my wife knew that I had sent it and stuff like that, and I was just hoping that you would respond, and because when you're doing this stuff, you just reach out to people, and hopefully somebody will grab something, and and we try to people that we really like, that's who we try to get on the show and stuff, and I was sitting there and you responded, and I was like, I got up, my eyes got real big, and I walked out of the room because I was like, I just screamed.
Like a little girl.
Oh no, not like that. But it was just.
You saw my Twitter picture. That's why you screamed.
And so she comes out there. She goes, "Are you all right?" And I said, "Look at this." And I said, "It's going to work out. It's awesome." So and I don't mean to have a fanboy moment, but it's cool for us to be able to do this. And to Dennis's point, we've not had anybody on the show yet that has not been, not to give you any pressure, been really nice, not been a jerk, but because of that thing. And the same thing, I've had, meeting people that you admire over the years, and all of a sudden you meet them and you're like, oh my God, I hope they're not an asshole. Because if they're an asshole, I just wasted a lot of money.
Yeah. I got
over the years.
My first fanboy moment was when I was stationed in Germany. I was in Hanover, and that's where Klaus Meine is from.
I was just going to say Scorpions, yeah.
Ran into him at a street festival. Couldn't have been a nicer guy.
He is such a sweetheart. I mean, he's really down to earth.
One of the few people on the planet that I'm taller than.
Yes, small in stature, large voice, and wonderful, sweet, warm personality. Yeah, lovely guy. Actually, all the Scorpions are great guys. Rudolph's a character, but he's a sweetheart. He really is. He's just got a really good heart. So, yeah, I adore those guys.
That's cool.
I think too that's about the longevity of a band. If you're, I think that helps out that part of it. Being that your fan base, because you are nice and you're good to your fans and everything, that continues your life in music. If you're a bunch of buttholes, you're not going to go very far.
Well, and it also has to do with how bands can stay together, because we do know of some bands where not all the personalities gelled all that well all the time. So, yeah, it's really important. Right. I mean, God, exactly. Spending as much time as you do with people, it's important.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I go to work. All of us, we go to work from whatever time to whatever time, leave, and those people stay there. Those personalities stay there, the people stay there, their shit stays there.
I know.
And that always isn't always that way when you're on a bus, right?
And that's one of the beautiful things about Foreigner is we all get along so well, and we have so much fun together, and we do have to spend a lot of time together. I mean, more so than bands did back in the day, because now we tour year round pretty much. I mean, we'll take a little time during the holidays or whatever, but back in the day, you would tour for 6 to 9 months, then you'd take 6 to 8 months and make a record. So you had that huge break where you were at home, or and even though you were working and you were in the studio, but you weren't on a bus together every day. Maybe you were in the studio together every day, but it was a little different. You could go home. Now it's year round, and so getting along is really important now.
Well, now that you mentioned Foreigner, can you tell us how you got into such a sweet gig?
I sure can. I had done a movie that we filmed in the year 2000. It came out in 2001, but it was a movie called Rockstar.
Love that movie.
We're going to talk about that too.
Well, in doing Rockstar, I was the bass player, of course, and Jason Bonham was the drummer in Steel Dragon, the band of the movie. Well, Jason and I ended up getting along really well, both personally and musically. Because we started the whole process by arranging, rehearsing, and recording the music for a couple months before we even started filming. So we had time together like being in a band. And we just really hit it off. We had a great time together. We had a great chemistry. We wrote together. I mean, there was all sorts of stuff that was just very instantaneous between Jason and I. And so flash forward to a couple years later when he's working with Mick Jones and kind of trying to talk Mick into revamping Foreigner. Lou had left in 2002, and Mick wasn't really sure what to do. Was he going to do a solo record or whatever? Jason kind of pointed at him like, hey, you own the name Foreigner. Why don't you be Foreigner? So they called me. So, Mick apparently wanted to go for it. And they called me, and I came down to play, and we just had an instant chemistry. It was, instant. And the jamming between Mick and Jason and I right away was really, really solid. And I loved them. I've always been a Foreigner fan. And originally it was only going to be occasional work. It was going to be like weekend warrior kind of thing, because I was producing bands at the time. So they got me in under the pretext of weekend warrior, but then I fell in love with it, of course. And once we got Kelly Hansen, then the sky was the limit, and we started playing all the time.
Absolutely, probably one of the best vocalists.
Oh, the greatest frontman out there.
Just phenomenal.
No question about it. Absolutely, hands down, the greatest frontman out there right now.
Your point. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I want to step back a minute. You were talking about, meeting the bands and them all being nice and friendly and everything. Back in 2005, I came and saw, it was supposed to be a Leonard Skinner show at the DuQuoin, Illinois State Fairground did I say 2005 already?
Yes.
Okay. And you guys ended up covering that show. And at the end of the show, you and Kelly and Mick and Jason all came back out because there was a few of us left over to get some stuff signed. And I've got pictures of all y'all signing my shirt, and I thought that was a pretty cool experience. You live what you live what you're preaching there. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah, that was. God, what a great thing. And, I think back on it, we really did sort of start the band over in many ways. We started, there had been a lot of damage to the Foreigner name, and Foreigner was not hugely in demand right at that point. So it was great. We felt the momentum of bringing it back. And those were early days. And the great thing about that is a band can really develop this tremendous bond. You have this common goal, and you're all very determined to make it work and to bring it to the next level. And that was right in the thick of that. That part of 2005 was right in the thick of that. We were really, really energized and fired up. And Mick was having a great time. The end days of Foreigner for him before the band revamped wasn't as enjoyable. And so getting in with a bunch of guys that were really fired up and that really wanted to kick ass every night, he was having the time of his life, and we were having a great time.
Yeah, one of the funniest things that night, because it was in the summer, they had a bunch of mayflies in the Midwest, and they kept getting up in the stage lights and dropping on the keyboard and dying, and that guy was trying to smack them out of the way. There was a lot of wrong notes played that night.
How do you get that out of the soundboard?
Fans.
I don't know. Windex? I don't know.
It's kind of, so that was pretty unique. You've been a Foreigner fan for a long time, even from back in the 80s, but never got to see them. And the first time I saw Foreigner was in 2012. here in Columbus, Indiana. You guys played the concert in the park, Rock the Park, and it was interesting because I knew that the only original member that was left was Mick, and I remember when the band came out, I'm like, and Mick wasn't there.
Yeah.
It wasn't. So he was doing. I think at that time it was after he had his heart issue, and he had taken some time off and was only playing certain gigs and whatever.
Right.
And
Yeah, he didn't come back till August of 12.
Yeah. So my buddy was with me. He said, okay, so this is like a cover band, and I'm like, no, dude, this is like a revamped Foreigner. It's gonna be great. And I was there. I was there to see you, but whatever. Anyway, so we get there, and it was phenomenal. I mean, I was amazed. And then I got to go twice last summer. Went to see him in Nashville and in Indianapolis. The Nashville show was cool. I don't know how you guys can tell up on the stage, because I'm not a musician. These two clowns are musicians, but I'm not. But that Ascend Amphitheater in Nashville has the best sound system I have ever heard in my life at any venue. It was incredible.
Great. Well,
it was incredible.
Was that with Cheap Trick?
Yeah, Cheap Trick and Jason Bonham.
All right. Well, we actually brought our own sound system that night.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That tour, we had our own sound system. And by the way, that sound system that we had with us, I think, is the best sound system in the world. And our front of house guy made a point to get that. I had heard it. Guns N' Roses had used that same exact sound system on the beginning of their, what's it called? Not Hell Freezes Over.
Not in this lifetime.
Not in this lifetime. Right. So that tour, I had seen. Actually, I went to soundcheck because Steven Adler is my best friend, and Steven played with him that night. So I went to soundcheck, and I was hanging out, and I was standing on the stage with them. And the amazing thing about that PA is most PAs, the low end thing, the subs, rumbles like that, like crazy. This PA, they figured out a way where it doesn't do it on the stage at all.
Wow.
And Duff even said to me, he said, come here, check this out. And so I walked out where he was standing, and I was like, he goes, and he looks at me like, huh? And even though you like some of that, especially as a bass player, but to have it so controlled like that was unbelievable. Anyway, so I was a huge fan of this PA, and then just by coincidence, our sound man picked that PA for the tour last year, and I think it's the best in the world, and I'm just really excited about it. And I don't know how I got off on that tangent, but oh well.
Well, we were talking about seeing you. We're seeing something, and I have tickets for the summer too, so I'm ready to go back.
Great.
Yeah.
It's going to be a great one.
It will be a great one. I hadn't seen Jason Bonham before. I was very impressed. I had not had an opportunity to see him, and I was very impressed.
They do Led Zeppelin better than Led Zeppelin most nights. I mean,
yes.
They are so great.
Yeah, I took my 17-year-old to Indianapolis, and I told him, I said, you just close your eyes because this is as close as you're ever going to get.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, and they have the sounds and the vibe. I mean, everything. They just do it incredibly well. And I'm a huge Zeppelin fan, and it just, to me, it's phenomenal what they do. It's just absolutely phenomenal, and I'm so glad that they're touring with us again this year.
Cool. And Whitesnake's not a shabby band to have on.
We've been wanting to tour with Whitesnake for years. This is very exciting. Great band. I love Whitesnake. I love their music. I love everything about them. Most of the guys are really good friends of mine.
When you see Joel, tell him we said hello.
I will. He is the greatest guy in the world. Greatest guy. They're all great guys. Love those guys. Red Beach I've known forever. I mean, they're really dear, sweet guys. And what a band, and what a show this is going to be. I mean, I don't care what anybody says. This is going to be the rock show of the summer. I really believe that.
I guarantee it. Thank
you. Thank you.
So I have a question. One of the questions I have is, thinking there is this huge resurgence of the 70s, late 70s, 80s bands, in the summer shows and doing festivals, and it's just What do you think is that causing that big resurgence?
I think just the quality of the music and people wanting to hear it. I mean, for 70s bands, it's probably also a little bit of a time thing. But, I mean, you've had bands like Styx and REO that have been around for a while who are great. And I think word of mouth has kind of spread through that. We've been out there. So I think it sort of opens up the channels a little bit for that. And there's great bands and there's great music. And frankly, there's no music like that in current music. Current music, I guess there's starting to be some that resembles that. Bands like Rival Sons, who I love, are great, that kind of thing. But really, it's still pretty unique music. And the people that perform that music, I mean, Styx are still great live. I mean, if you go to see them, they don't seem like an older band. They seem youthful.
I just seen that show here about a month ago. Styx, REO, and Don Felder, and they were like you said, they're on their game.
We toured with Don a couple years ago too.
Yeah.
Don is amazing, and he does these Eagles songs so well. I mean, he sings them great, and his band is fabulous. So, I mean, it just comes down to great quality music done by people that have a real special talent, and I think it's a unique talent. A lot of the newer bands, that's not what they do. So I think it sort of stands out. And that's why I find we even get a lot of young people at shows, and I think it's because it's different to them. It's fresh to them. How cool.
Great.
Exactly. Cool. Hey, I want to go back real quick about the Rockstar movie.
Okay.
Like I said, that's one of those ones that every time I go in and it's on one of the channels, okay, shit, I'm sitting here watching it again, because you can't pass it up. Cool. That thing was, the concert was actually recorded at a concert, right?
That is correct.
Now, how did that happen? How was that?
Well, what happened? We had been in the Los Angeles Convention Center for about a month, and that was. It had been the big venue in the days. I mean, like I know Dokken played there in 1986 with Judas Priest. But it was kind of on its way out as a concert venue. So they were able to get it for a month. Gotcha. But it's a big place, 20,000 people. So we had it for a month where we were filming. And every day there would be 500 extras that would, fill the front to be the audience. Well, then they finally decided, and I believe it was on May 10th. For some reason, that date is sticking out in my head. May 10th of 2000, that they were going to do a free show. They just advertised it on the radio that day. I'm trying to think. I believe it was Megadeth. I'm trying to think who else, but they got a couple of name bands in there. Pretty sure Megadeth was the biggie, to draw people in, and then. We played for a couple hours. I forget if we were early or late or whatever, but we played for a couple hours and told the audience, hey, look, we're filming a movie. We're going to do these songs. We're going to do them again. We're going to start over. We're going to do all the stuff that happens in movies. You're getting to see a movie being made, but, rock your asses off. We have you here so that we have a real audience.
Right.
So they're playing in front of 20,000 people, and it was great, and it felt like a real show. Although it's always weird when you do songs over and over again. But the audience was amazingly understanding and patient with us, and it was great. And coincidentally, that night, my wife happened to be there. I didn't meet her that night, but she was in the audience that night.
Cool.
She was there with a friend. I almost got a chance to meet her, but I wouldn't end up meeting her till a few months later. But so it's that day has a very special meaning for me.
Well, that's cool.
That might be why you remember the date.
So all those songs, though, like I said, you guys recorded all those shows or songs beforehand, before the actual filming and everything. Because there was someone was Sammy Hagar wrote some of that, or there was one from him.
Mike Machievik, or however you pronounce his last name, from Steelheart, wrote. He might have even written a couple. What's his name from Marilyn Manson's band? Twiggy Ramirez. He wrote a song. Who else? I forget. The singer from Autograph, Steve Plunkett. Is that him?
Yeah, Plunkett.
Yeah. He wrote one of the songs. Yeah, they had the material when we all got on board to film or to be part of the movie. They had the material gathered, but what was cool is we got together for several weeks first and arranged it. Zach and Jason and I, essentially. We also had Nick Cantonese, who was in Zach's band at the time, playing second guitar. So the four of us, with Mike Machievik kind of coming in and out of the room, we arranged the music. And, because we had several weeks to do it, we kind of got a band vibe going and a band sound. And in fact, that's how I got in the movie. I was originally brought into the movie just to be the studio bass player. And when I came into the rehearsals, pretty quickly they made me the musical director. And then because of that, as we rehearsed, the director used to come down and watch us rehearse. And he started seeing the vibe that we were making, and he really liked it. And so he approached me one day and he said, I really like what's happening here. This feels like a real band. And, it kind of was, really.
Right.
Said, would you consider being in the movie? And I was like, yes. So it actually worked out great. And it was done very organically. We kind of became a band first. We worked on the music. Then we went into the studio for a month and recorded it all. So we had this time together as a band before we even started filming, which I thought was, it was partly just part of the process, but the director very much wanted us to be a band. And I thought it was brilliant on his part, the way he did that. And of course, it was brilliant, his selection of bass player for the movie. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's cool.
I had read somewhere that you guys some of the songs are written on the fly during the movie. Is that true, or do you know?
There were some written. Jason and I wrote one that was going to be in the movie, and then the scene that it was going to be in got cut out. There were a few things that kind of, dare I say it, the way we did them at the rehearsals and everything was kind of like it was doing it on the fly. A lot of it was just jamming, and Zach, his brilliant mind, coming up with stuff. But I don't recall nothing that ended up in the final product. I don't believe was a product of anything that we came up with. Although there are moments, I know when we're playing that those might have been moments where we just kind of took off and did something. But we didn't full on write anything that ended up in the final movie.
Have you played any of those songs live? Have you, other than that concert, have you played any of those anywhere?
I don't think so. I don't believe so. No.
That's a great record.
There's some cool songs. There's some cool.
There was an attempt at one point to get us all on the road to help promote the movie, and it was just too hard getting everybody together and being able to do it at one time. But yeah, that would have been fun. It'd be a great band.
Definitely would be a great band. That is for sure.
Definitely. Oh,
so you got some stuff coming out, right? So
lots of stuff.
Yeah, lots of stuff going on. So are you producing now?
I'm producing. I've got a couple things that I'm producing. What I'm producing right now is I'm producing the second Last in Line record. And Last in Line is the band with Vivian Campbell, Vinny Appice from Dio. It was with Jimmy Bain until he passed away a couple years ago. But Jimmy did play on the first record, which I produced a couple years ago. But they've now replaced Jimmy with a guy by the name of Phil Suzanne, who is great, doing an amazing job. And the singer is a guy by the name of Andrew Freeman, who I guess, right now he's been doing the thing raiding the Rock Vault in Vegas for the last few years. But Andrew is a monster, just a monster. I kind of compare his voice to a combination of Ronnie Dio and Glenn Hughes. Just this insane range, this insane power, great writer, great. He's just the perfect singer for those guys. Anyways, we're doing that's their second record I've been working on for several months now. We're hoping to have it finished up in the next couple months. The plan is to deliver it, or is it for it to come out in early 2019, because they're hoping they can tour around it, which would be great. Vivian tours with Leopard until sometime into December, so that was why it was decided not to put it out till 2019. But that record's coming out phenomenal. I don't know if you heard the first one, but if you didn't, you got to listen to it. And then when the second one comes out, you got to check it out. It's really, really great. The other thing I'm producing is a project with George Lynch and Mick Brown from Dokken and I, and Robert Mason, who is the singer from Warrant. We have a band, which I don't want to jinx it, but we just thought of a name yesterday. So yet till we get it all cleared. We had been going under the name Superstroke, but we decided against that name. So we've came up with a name that we all love, and it's really cool, but I don't want to say anything yet. So I'm not going to say the name.
It almost broke here.
I almost did. I'm tempted. But that band and that record are just phenomenal. That too is going to come out in early 2019. It's insane. George is playing, I mean, some of the best playing he's ever done in his life. It's just so musical and so great. Mick Brown is playing his ass off. The grooves on this thing are insane. And Robert, it's like another planet. His singing is so phenomenal. His range, his tone, his soulfulness, his expression, everything. Great. So I'm really excited about that. We have one vocal to go on that, and then we're done with that record. So we're almost done. And the last couple of days we were working, we came up with the title and the hook for the last song. So I'd say one more day of working, and we got that puppy done, and it's going to be a phenomenal record. I'm so excited. That's early 2019.
Can't wait to hear it.
That's early 2019 as well.
That's early 2019 as well. And God willing, we're going to figure out a way to get that on the road as well, because it would just be too great a band. And I mean, we could do Dokken songs such justice. We could do Lynch Mob songs. Great. You know, Robert was in Lynch Mob. He was on the second Lynch Mob record. I don't know if we do any Warrant songs. I guess we kind of have to run it by those guys and see how they felt about it. But if they let us do a Warrant song, we could even do that. So, I mean, how cool would that be? It would just be a great live band, and I would be so excited to do it. So we are really trying to figure out a way that we can somehow play live with that, which is not easy when you're in Foreigner who plays, 375 days a year. So
well, that was going to be the question. How did you get the time off to go to Japan with Dokken for 6 shows?
Well, we were very fortunate in that the Japanese actually booked it around Foreigner having a break. They got a hold of my schedule, well, everybody's schedules, but mine was the trickiest. And they saw this particular hole of time, and they said, okay, we're going to book it here. They made us an offer we couldn't refuse. And because I was available, we did it, and it worked out amazing. So maybe something like that can happen again.
Were you surprised by the reaction, at the, because you did that with 2 shows at the pawn shop in
actually one
Oklahoma? Show. Oh, okay. Were you surprised by the reaction from that? I mean, the video stuff was cool. I mean, it was.
No, I wasn't. I knew people would be excited. I mean, there is a vibe about, you have to acknowledge that there was something about Dokken. I mean, Don's Dokken that he's got out there right now is really great. They're a great band. But irregardless, there is a special chemistry with the 4 of us. And so, no, I wasn't really surprised. I mean, I just am very grateful that to this day, 35 years after the first record, people still want to see us. So that's pretty cool. So I wasn't surprised. I was surprised at how well we got along. That was the shocking part, and that was great.
Cool. So how was the trip to Japan? Did everybody kind of get along in Japan? Was that seemed to go pretty well? And
it went extremely well. We had a lot of fun. We really did. It was, I don't know if it's because we all knew, well, this is a special thing or whatever, but we just kind of let bygones be bygones, and we kind of just had fun, and we were in the moment, and I think we were all very appreciative. We knew it meant a lot, especially to the Japanese fans when we got there. And we were having fun, and I think we were enjoying our chemistry, which I wish we would have done more of, 30 years ago, but we were enjoying what we have. We do have something, and when you're away from it and you come back to it and it's still there, it becomes very, 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 very apparent how strong it is. And I think because we were all in that space, we kind of knew it and acknowledged it, and tried to make the most of it, and as a result, we had a lot of fun.
Cool. Awesome. I have a question. Wasn't sure if I should ask or not, but I'm gonna give it a shot. So, I've been a big fan of Dokken, a big fan of Great White, and some of those other bands, and that were bands that I always saw open, but never got to see on the big stage.
Yeah.
What happened? Why didn't that happen? Because
we broke up.
Was that the timing of that? Was it just the timing of that? Is that why? Because there were millions of records sold, and it was just.
And you had videos on MTV. You had everything it takes to get to that point.
Well, we also had management who were great, by the way. They managed Metallica and Leopard, and they were great management. But their theory was wait to headline until it's absolutely mania. So the plan was, had we not broken up right when we did, we were going to headline the next year. And in fact, our managers sat us down to try and talk us out of breaking up, and showed us how much money we were going to make if we would have headlined and stayed together. And it was a very solid plan. And again, their feeling was it's better to be an opening act and wait until you absolutely kind of have to headline to build it up and get all that excitement going, rather than blow your wad and headline too soon. The truth is we could have headlined probably a year earlier than we did, but the plan was to wait. And then when we did the Monsters of Rock tour, that kind of was somewhat in lieu of a headlining tour, because it was a stadium package where we were paid very well. But you can't then go back and headline right after you do something like that, because the promoters would be very upset. So anyways, that was the plan. And then, yes, we broke up.
Dang.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Timing sucks.
Right.
Damn it all. So Foreigner's got some stuff going on too, right? So your tour's coming, and new video coming out. New CD coming out.
We have a new CD coming out any day now, like any day. And that's called Foreigner with the 21st Century Orchestra, which is a great record. We recorded it last May in Switzerland, and we recorded and filmed 2 nights with the 21st Century Orchestra. This was at an event put on by the city of Lucerne, Switzerland. It was just a tremendous experience. We were there a week. We rehearsed with the orchestra for a few days. Then we did the 2 shows and recorded them and filmed them. And it was just an amazing experience. Glad we got it all down on, and recorded. It was a lot of work, because it's very intense recording an orchestra and a rock band. It's not an easy thing to do. But we had some great people with us. Wynn Davis, who has been our mixing engineer and engineer for many years now, who actually goes back to the Dokken days, by the way. But Wynn came to Switzerland to help record it. So it's a phenomenal recording. It came out ridiculously well. And that comes out, like I say, any day. As did the Dokken record that I think just came out a couple days ago or something. So we have that. Then Foreigner, of course, is doing the tour this summer with Whitesnake and the Jason Bonham Led Zeppelin Evening, which is going to be a fabulous tour. Then we go to Australia in the fall, where we do an orchestral tour there. And then we have a record coming out at the end of the year or early next year, not sure when yet, which is featuring the original Foreigner, who we did some shows with at a place called the Soaring Eagle in Michigan. We did a couple shows last October that we recorded and filmed, and that will be coming out, like I said, later in the year. And that came out great. We're actually mixing it right now. So Foreigner has a lot of stuff coming, a lot of touring, and a lot of great product. We did the 40th record last year that had a couple of new songs on it. So, yeah, we've been busy and staying quite active.
Jeff's a busy man.
Yeah, I don't take a lot of time off.
Who decides the set list for the shows, for the Foreigner shows? Do you, as a musical director, do you have?
Generally, I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to run it by Mick. I don't tell him what to play, but I generally draw it up, and we discuss it, and I've got a really good sense. I mean, especially when we're given different times, how long the set's going to be, and I have a real good sense of how long each song is, and a pretty good sense of the flow of the show. And so I usually talk it over. If Mick's not there, or I'll generally talk it over with Kelly. But it's generally they go with what I go with.
Cool. The man behind the music, right there.
Yeah, well, pretty easy to write a foreigner set list. They're all hits.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'll play this record and then that one.
Yeah. There's no pee break in here. What are we gonna do?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, that's the good part.
Drum solos.
That's the gig, right? It's drum solos and guitar solos for me are both. Yeah, that's the option.
Not for Dennis, who has his 5150 back there. I bet Dennis could give us a guitar solo right now.
No, Dennis usually goes to the bathroom too during guitar solos.
No, I have to say the only time I ever saw Bill not go to the bathroom in a guitar solo, we went to see Alice Cooper a couple of weeks ago, and he stayed and watched Anita Strauss do her thing.
That probably was not because of her guitar prowess. That
guessing. Would be a fact.
She is pretty easy on the old eyes, yes.
And she plays great.
But she's really easy on the eyes.
She's really. Just call it what it is, right? Call it is.
No, not taking away from her talent. She's a great player.
Yeah. Exactly. Is there some place that you've played that is some place that you really love to play, that venue sticks in your head, that you have this, it has a special vibe or a special memory for you or anything?
Well, pretty much anywhere in Japan, is generally a very memorable experience. Wow. There's so many great places. If you're asking for one particular one, I don't know if there is one that sticks out as one. But, I mean, again, Texas is always a great place to play. People always go nuts down there. Any arena. And frankly, from the stage perspective, it sort of all becomes a mush, and they all sort of look the same. But arenas are by far my favorite, and I love playing arenas no matter where, when, whatever. Arenas are my favorite. So if my real answer to that question would be arenas. Any arena, I'm a happy guy.
Cool. So what makes Japan so different?
They're a little milder. They don't quite freak out like American audiences do or some European crowds. But they just listen so carefully, and they follow so intently, and they're just really they really pay attention to detail and the music, and they're just so appreciative, and they're very kind. I mean, when you talk to them afterwards, they'll even talk about music, and I like that. I like when people have musical questions. That's fun for me. I mean, like, wow, you're listening, great.
Cool. Are there any, I got one more question, and I think we're going to wrap it up. Are there any bands that you're listening to now that are new? Is there anybody out there that you hear today that you think?
Well, I think Sons. And wow, I just heard something, and I'm spacing on the name. But there are a couple cool rock bands out there. Oh man, I'm spacing on the name of one that I just heard.
I put you on the spot.
Yeah. I should know, but my brain is mush. But I will say Rival Sons. I think they're great. In particular, it's the Zeppelin-y sounding one. Greta
Van Fleet.
Yes. I enjoy them. I don't think they're as. I mean, I do see the Zeppelin influence, but I think they have kind of their own thing. I love the guy's voice. I think his voice is so cool. And some of the tunes, I think it's pretty. I love the fact that they're going in that direction. I think it's great.
Cool.
Exactly.
Jeff, man, thank you so much for being on the show.
Pleasure, guys. Thank you.
It's been something I've thought about for about 117 episodes.
Wow.
Well, Bill's done. Bill will be retiring tomorrow now.
I really am.
I'm good. This is what it was about for me.
Awesome, guys.
But no, it really is cool. And I think we talked about it earlier, being able to sit down and chat with somebody that you've watched for a long time and admire is just a cool thing to be able to get to do. So thanks for your time. We really appreciate it.
When does this appear?
Tomorrow.
I will render it tonight, and it will go live tomorrow. Which, for people who are listening to this 10 years from now, that is April 26, 2018.
Great. Well, make sure and send Michael, the guy that you dealt with, all the info, and he'll get it up on our social media stuff. Cool. Thank you so much, guys. A real pleasure. Good luck on everything. I hope to meet you at shows at some point. Where do you all live?
I live about 40 miles south of Indianapolis, so I will see you in Indianapolis. Yeah.
Okay.
We're all in southern Indiana, Evansville area.
Okay.
So,
Alan?
Dennis and I live like 2 miles away from each other.
I see.
I got the hell out of town.
Well, listen, you Hoosiers. Thank you for everything. And like I say, hope I get to meet you at a show sometime.
All right. Hang around for just a
second. Hang on a second once we log out of here.
Sure.
You want to take us out,
Alan,
Bill?
Oh, God, I always wreck this. All right, so thanks for being on the show again. And that was Jeff Pilson. For those of you that don't know who he is, what the hell is wrong with you? Anyway, so you can find us on agesofrock.com. You can find us on Stitcher Radio. You can find us on
Facebook,
iTunes, Facebook, Twitter, Spotify. That's right.
Spotify. Yeah.
So check us out. Leave us some ratings, and we will catch you next week. See ya.
Peace out. Thanks for listening to the Ages of Rock podcast. If you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, like us on Facebook, and most importantly, tell all your friends. Remember, you're never too old to rock. Until the next episode, peace out, folks.